Let's start with the Nuggets' lack of participation in free agency. They are the only team in the NBA not to sign a free agent. Guys, is this a rebuild? And if so, why don't they just call it that?
Teams don't like to call it that, Les. I dealt with this with the Rockies. They would never say that they're going to a youth movement. I would always, when I'd write it, it's like the unstated youth movement, or they refuse to announce a youth movement because they're in fear of even more adverse reaction from their fan base.
Yeah,
so that was the Rockies
for season
case.
Ticket sales.
It's not great for season ticket sales when you're basically saying we're not trying this year. But at some point, it's an insult to those same season ticket holders and diehard fans to not just be honest with them and just say, listen, we're not there right now. We're a year away. We're trying to put some pieces together. But Woody, what I'd ask you is, everyone thought next year would be the year on the cap. This was the year to be aggressive because you had the cushion next year knowing the cap's going up. Everything's happening a year early. The Nuggets are sitting on the sidelines.
Well, yeah,
I mean, there'll be free agents out there, but this was the year.
But Troy, here's the deal. NBA front offices were surprised by this. NBA players ended up going for the security of long-term deals rather than signing a 1 or 2 year deal and waiting for the cap to go through the roof.
Well, if you get $20 million this year, it's more valuable than it will be 2 years from now. There is a cause and effect sort of situation that you have to decide, do I want to get the money now? And it's going to, one of the reasons why teams will have deferred payments, it's not going to be worth as much when we have to turn around and pay it. So I think that's part of the reason why, but I think the Denver Nuggets have been caught short here on two fronts. One, you get so lucky in the draft, according to most of us, and get Moutier. Keep that momentum going. Get people excited. What have they done? They just returned to dormancy. The only story I've seen, and maybe I missed them because I've had some personal issues, but the only story I saw was, oh, they're working with Daryl Arthur. Really? That is what you got?
You know what I think they're thinking, guys?
They're trying to re-sign him.
You know what I think they're thinking? That they don't have to rebuild, that they're going to bring in a lot of these young guys who played overseas. Jokic, Joffrey Laverne, Nurkic is back for another year, Gallinari's healthy. Guys, they drafted Radicevic, I think is how you say it, Radicevic. All these Euros.
We'll go with that. Who's going to question you on that?
Who have?
You're just making this up.
No. They have
Rudy T.
This is what I think they're thinking.
He's known as the European assassin.
They're bringing in European players who have had pro experience and aren't quite rookies, but also aren't quite veterans in the NBA, so they don't have to start all over with too many young kids. The problem with that is, and we had a guest on yesterday who said this, there's nothing intimidating about these guys. They're all 6'11", 7 feet, but they're not intimidating. They're not physical in any way. When you read the scouting reports on them, you see not physical, needs to get stronger, not terribly athletic.
Okay, you made the point. Well, let me ask you a question. Let's be direct. Let's stop bouncing around. Do you hate European players? Do you think it's a mistake that there's five or six on the team? So about a third of the team is European. Seems to me the San Antonio Spurs have done well with a lot of overseas players. So do you just generally don't like European players, or do you dislike loading up with that many European players?
I think because of the style of ball overseas, the big men are more shooters and passers than they are physical. So I think you're fooling yourself. If you're collecting all these big men thinking you're going to have a physical team, the game is physical. You get into the playoffs, and the deeper you go in the playoffs, the more physical it gets. You've got a bunch of 7-footers who are shooting from three-point land. You're going to have trouble in the playoffs. I think Euros are great players. Many of them are great players. But I think if you have too many who play that style, you're asking for trouble.
I think the last 19 drafted in the first round of the lottery haven't made an all-star game. I mean, the evidence, everyone thinks they have the next Dirk Nowitzki.
Right.
They don't. It's been proven they haven't, that he was the outlier. Now, Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili fit, but why do they fit? Because Tim Duncan's the anchor who's an all-time top 10 player. I mean, the Euro thing doesn't matter to me if they're talented. When you ask about, you bring in all these Euro guys, all it does for fans is delay judgment because nobody knows who these guys are. If they were the point guard at Duke and the sixth man off the bench for Kentucky, people would be criticizing because they've watched them. None of us, for the most part, have seen these guys play, so you can't really lambaste them until they get on the court. But as a strategy, I just think that the Euro strategy, there's the Spurs have made it work based on the fact they have one of the greatest players of all time to anchor anybody you bring in, and Dirk Nowitzki. Where are all these other teams that are having success with it? I just think they're trying to find a niche that doesn't exist.
Well, I would respond in two ways to that. One, since Masai Ujiri came here, they have had a better underground vision of scouting European and foreign players. Yeah. So whether that's good or not, the Rockies years ago sort of dipped their toes into Venezuela more than some other teams did. And I just saw recently that those Venezuelan baseball academies are all closing. They feel like they got most of the guys that were there. But going back to your original Europeans, I don't think you can judge them. Mozgov was a tough guy. I thought Mozgov was tough. You didn't think so?
I don't think he's a great starting center in the NBA. Well, I think he's a nice complementary player, and a lot of them are complementary players.
He's a physical guy. Well, yes, as Troy pointed out, I mean, how many of anybody's going to be Dirk Nowitzki? He's one of the best players of all time. But do you say we're going to take North Carolina players because, wow, North Carolina players are really good? Well, there have been a lot of good North Carolina players. There have been a lot of lousy North Carolina players. So I don't think you can judge that until we do see them. It's like baseball players being drafted, hockey players. We don't know for 3 or 4 years. So NBA's kind of come that way in terms of the numbers, and the numbers of the Europeans are up to about 28%. So it's more than 1/4 of your rosters are European players. So if these people are wrong, these basketball people, they're all wrong because they're all drafting or bringing over.
I'm not saying they shouldn't be playing in the league. I'm not saying a lot of them shouldn't be. I'm saying that so far they have turned out to be nice complementary players, and when you have too many of them, you've got a whole bunch of complementary players is the problem. Harmony Foundation is Colorado's premier treatment program for drug and alcohol addiction. It's located just outside of Estes Park on a private 45-acre mountain campus. They are insurance friendly, so visit harmonyfoundationinc.com.
The question on the floor, though, to begin with was the Nuggets haven't made any effort whatsoever to go after any named player. Is this a strategy that you think they actually are doing on purpose, where they're saying we're holding back our money, or are they just saying we think we got a lot of players we can re-sign? Because they're talking about Will Barton and Daryl Arthur and who am I missing? Somebody else. There's 3 guys, and you go, really? Maybe Eric Green, maybe a couple of those other guys that filtered in at the end of the season. I think they're just totally destroying every bit of PR that they got at the draft. And people were excited here.
Yeah.
You know that. People were excited that night that attended the draft party. People were excited in the street asking me, what do you know about this kid? You're really behind him. And now it just all died again. It's just amazing to me that teams don't grab that ring when it's given to them, and I don't mean championship ring. Just grab the ring off the merry-go-round and say, we're going to ride this merry-go-round for a while. They're not. They went back into hiding. They were in hiding for 2 months on the coach and the player and everything. There was a peak moment, and if you were doing a graft, you'd go flatlining and then flatlining again. That's what I think.
I think it caught him by surprise. It's a great point, Woody. They didn't think they were going to get him in the draft. Jameer Nelson was the other name you're looking for, another complete nondescript player at this point in his career. It seems like to me by the fact they went into isolation, because again, I compare it to covering the Rockies when they had no money, so they didn't really want to say anything because they knew they weren't going to play on any guys, and they were just waiting until they could bottom feed and maybe find a pitcher coming off Tommy John or a guy who at the end of his career had no other options. But they luck out in the draft and get a guy that shouldn't have been there. And I agree with Woody. You try to build off that, but other than like Greg Monroe, were they even attached to any name?
No, not one name. But guys, I'm telling you,
Monte Ellis got a sniff.
You got to remember, they brought in Joffrey Laverne mid-season last year, and they brought in
they're bringing in
Jokic or Jokic. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name.
Who cares?
Again this year, and they're wild about him. That's two of the 12 spots on the roster. So that's their That's their form of free agency. That's what they're doing. That's how they're building this roster.
Well, again, that's
you're getting those guys for practically nothing. You can't. It's not Greg Monroe when you're paying him $80 million. It's a guy that was the most valuable player. Let's give him some credit. Most valuable player in the Asiatic League, wherever that is. He was the most valuable player.
I think it's somewhere in Asia.
Jokic,
that's just a guess.
Mokic, whatever his name is. But he was the most valuable player. And the next, I think they are going to sign a free agent who's the most valuable player at the YMC that's across the street from the Post.
Keep something in mind as well, guys. They do plan on making some trades. They do plan on dealing Ty Lawson.
I would think
so. There's going to be a little bit more roster makeover here. So depending on what they get back.
Well, you know what they're going to get back? You want me to tell you what they're going to get back?
Sure.
Draft choices.
Probably.
They are going to get crappy future draft choices if a team is so bad and the team will be. So they're going to get the next draft choice next year. Well, that really helps us now.